Toy Guru. In 2011, a company walked into the Shark Tank and said 5 words that made every parent in America lean forward. "We're the Netflix for toys." The pitch was Toy Guru, a subscription service where you pay a monthly fee, toys show up at your door, your kids play with them until they're bored, you ship them back, new ones arrive, no clutter, no waste, no stepping on a Lego at 2 in the morning and silently rethinking every decision that led you to parenthood. Cuban loved it. O'Leary loved it. $200,000. 40% equity. Done. 500 families already subscribed. 1,000 more on the waiting list. And then the episode aired, and Toy Guru got hit with the kind of demand that kills companies that aren't ready for it. Free shipping both directions, that was the promise, was hemorrhaging cash. And then there was the one detail that nobody in that room seemed to think was worth mentioning. Children destroy things. That is the primary function of a child. A toy that gets rented out to a 3-year-old, loved aggressively for a month, launched down a staircase, put in a mouth, and shipped back in a box is not a toy you can sanitize and send to the next family. It's a crime scene with a FedEx label on it. Toy Guru filed for bankruptcy within a year. $200,000 from 2 billionaires, and the whole thing was killed by the most predictable force in the known universe, a toddler. Sweet balls. In Season 5, 2 guys named James McDonald and Cole Egger stood in the tank, holding little round spheres of cake, the kind of thing you'd impulse buy at a 7-Eleven at 11 p.m. and feel nothing about. They were called Sweet Balls. They already had a nationwide deal with 7-Eleven. They'd already pulled in $700,000 in convenience store sales. Mark Cuban and Barbara Corcoran handed them $250,000 for 25% equity. Good product, good numbers. Done deal. And then, almost immediately after filming, McDonald discovered that his business partner had quietly started a competing company. The name of this competing company? I need you to brace yourself. Cake Balls. Same product, different vowel. Same betrayal. McDonald sued. Egger countersued. Restraining orders were filed, plural because apparently one restraining order is not sufficient for the cake ball industry. The Sweet Balls website went dark, and for a brief, genuinely unhinged period, if you typed in the Sweet Balls URL, it redirected to Cake Balls. Imagine being Mark Cuban, checking on your $250,000 investment, and getting redirected to the knockoff, $250,000, a 7-Eleven deal, and 2 co-founders who looked at a winning lottery ticket and set it on fire because they couldn't agree on who got to hold it. Over cake. Body jack. This one is short because the failure is right there in the product. In Season 1, a man named Jack Barringer, infomercial star, which is already a sentence that should make any investor reach for the door, walked in with the body jack, a machine designed to make push-ups easier. If you're already thinking, but the whole point of a push-up is that it's hard, congratulations. You've identified the problem faster than 2 professional investors. Barbara Corcoran and Kevin Harrington offered $180,000. But Barbara had a condition. Jack had to lose 30 pounds using his own machine to prove it worked. On national television, Barbara Corcoran made a man audition for his own money with the product he was selling her. He did it, lost the weight. The deal closed, and then the body jack vanished. Website, gone. Product, gone. Sales, if they existed, nobody's talking. Barbara has called it the worst deal she's ever made on Shark Tank. Her exact words to Forbes were, "My worst was investing in a fast-talking cowboy selling exercise equipment who needed to lose 50 pounds. I've read a lot of investor quotes in my life. That might be my favorite sentence in the English language. If you're still watching after that, subscribe, because this last one is the reason this video exists, and it involves all 5 sharks making the worst mistake of their careers at the exact same time. Hi Con. Jeff Stroop had been a firefighter since 1992. And if you've never watched a crew connect a fire hose to a hydrant, here's what you need to know. It takes 30 seconds, sometimes longer. You're threading heavy brass fittings by hand, in full gear, in the dark, while a building burns. 30 seconds doesn't sound like a lot until you realize that the difference between saving a house and losing one can be exactly that. So Stroop, a CNC machinist on top of being a firefighter, built something on his own time, in his own shop, on his own dime. He called it HiCon. It was a quick connect adapter that could hook a fire hose to any hydrant in 3 seconds. 3. No threading, no wrenching, no tools. He brought 2 firefighters to the tank, ran a live side-by-side demo, and the difference wasn't even close. One guy was still screwing on the standard fitting, while the other was already done and standing there waiting. 3 sharks made offers. Cuban won with the biggest deal the show had seen, $1.25 million for 100% of the company, plus a salary and royalties. A firefighter from Arkansas who built something in his garage just shook hands with a billionaire on national television. If you wrote this as a movie, people would say it was too neat. After filming, Cuban allegedly wanted to change the deal. Instead of manufacturing HiCon, he pushed to license it to a third-party company, which would have removed the guy who invented it from his own invention. Stroop walked away. The deal died, and a firefighter with 33,000 potential customers, every fire department in America, suddenly had no capital, no manufacturing partner, and a flood of orders from the show that he couldn't fill. He still sells HiCon today, at fire conventions. 1 booth, 1 demo at a time, out of his own pocket, 3 seconds to connect, over a decade stuck in limbo. There are a lot of failures on this list. This is the only one that makes me angry. Breathometer. In 2013, a man named Charles Michael Yim walked into the tank with a device the size of a thumb drive. It plugged into your phone's headphone jack. You blew into it. An app told you your blood alcohol level, and his pitch was the kind of sentence that makes investors stop thinking and start feeling. This could save lives. What happened next had never happened before in the history of the show. All 5 sharks invested, together. $1 million for 30% equity. Cuban alone put in $500,000. They clinked champagne glasses on set. Kevin O'Leary, a man who has looked broke entrepreneurs in the eye and told them their life's work is worth nothing, smiled at Charles Yim and said he'd mastered the art of the pitch. There was one problem. The breathometer didn't work. Not needed a software update. It did not work. The device routinely understated blood alcohol content, which means it would tell someone who was too drunk to drive that they were fine. So the thing that was supposed to stop drunk driving was, in practice, green-lighting it, and the company knew. Internal testing between January and March of 2015 found the sensors were sensitive to humidity, sensitive to temperature, and producing readings so inconsistent they were essentially random numbers dressed up as medical data. The company's response was not to fix the accuracy. It was to recalibrate the device, to overestimate instead, which is like fixing a broken smoke detector by making it scream 24 hours a day. Technically safer, fundamentally insane. But here's where the story leaves bad product and enters something else. Mark Cuban, the man who wrote the biggest check, started seeing things on Yim's Instagram. Bora Bora, Las Vegas. Necker Island with Richard Branson. Cuban texted him directly. "What the f*** are you doing? You're supposed to be working." Yim said he was networking. Cuban's version of what happened next is 5 words long. All of the money's gone. $5.1 million in total sales. A device that never underwent the government lab-grade testing it advertised. And a founder on a beach. In January 2017, the Federal Trade Commission shut it down. Full refunds. Every customer. Cuban has publicly called it the worst investment in the history of SharkTank. The company is dead, and the first ever all-shark deal, the champagne, the applause, the handshake that made television history, turned out to be 5 of the smartest investors in America, getting outpitched by a man who took their $1 million to the beach. Every failure on this list walked into the same room, stood under the same lights, and did the same thing, said exactly the right words to exactly the right people. And every time, the words were better than the thing behind them. $1 million. 5 sharks. 0 due diligence. The tank is supposed to be where the sharks eat, but every now and then, someone walks in with the right words, and the sharks become the meal. The pitch was never the product. The pitch was always just the bait. If you've watched till the end, like and share. Subscribe if you want more stories like these.